Hey guys, today I'm going to be making a tier list for the potential 2024 GOP candidates for president. We have a pretty extensive list here of possible nominees, many of them who have already expressed interest in running for the GOP nomination in 2024. And today I'm going to be ranking them on how well I think they will do in a GOP primary, as well as how viable of a candidate they would be on the national level. So we have many candidates on this list. Before that, I do want to take a look at currently how the actual numbers stand in terms of the 2024 GOP nomination. As you can see in almost every single poll that has been released, Donald Trump leads by double-digit margins of up to 50% sometimes in some of these polls in which Trump is included. However, when Trump is excluded from these polls, Mike Pence or Ron DeSantis typically lead in the polls. And that's, these are just the latest polling numbers. However, in a head-to-head matchup between Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump leads by 40 points, by 28 points in this poll. So really, Donald Trump is the clear frontrunner for this nomination right now, just in terms of polling data alone, followed by Mike Pence and Ron DeSantis. And this is also seen with the betting odds here. So Mike Pence's odds are very, very low. That is because he really does not have the type of charisma or excitement behind him that Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump could have. People are supporting him though as of right now because of the fact that he was Donald Trump's vice president for 4 years and stood by his side pretty loyally for almost the entirety of his vice presidential term. So really only Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis have any significant chance of winning the nomination right now, but they are followed by Nikki Haley, Mike Pompeo, Mike Pence, Tim Scott, Ted Cruz, and Tom Cotton. So as you can see, this market has essentially stayed the same because nothing too drastic has happened, but Ron DeSantis definitely has emerged as a major candidate this year, while Nikki Haley, who was originally the frontrunner for 2024 before Trump lost his re-election, if Trump won his re-election, Nikki Haley probably would be the frontrunner right now too, if she had stayed with Trump after the insurrection at the Capitol and just many of the things that he did afterwards. Nikki Haley did not defend Trump. She did attack Trump on several occasions after the election, and so that is why she is no longer she doesn't have as large of a chance of winning the nomination because she is no longer as closely tied to the former president as she previously was. So I'm going to start off here with Rand Paul. He did run for president in 2016 pretty unsuccessfully. I'm going to put him in the D tier of candidates. He's gotten a lot of attention for arguing with Dr. Fauci recently, but I just don't think he has any sort of excitement behind him that can make him any sort of viable candidate for the GOP. Greg Abbott is the incumbent governor of the state of Texas. He'll be running for re-election in 2022, so theoretically he could still run for president in 2024, and if he does lose, he could keep his job. So I'm going to put him in the C tier. From a major Republican state, I think that Greg Abbott definitely does have some sort of appeal to many Republicans, especially in the South. For Joni Ernst, a relatively unknown senator from the state of Iowa, I'm going to classify her similarly to Rand Paul. Not too much excitement. She did not run in 2016, but I don't think that she is going to do too well in the 2024 primary. We have Dan Crenshaw, a representative from the state of Florida, not too well known. I'm going to put him in the F tier. He really does not have any chance at winning this nomination. So on this list, you will see many repeats from the 2016 primary, especially Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, John Kasich, who is not on this list and who is most likely not going to be running in 2024. So these are the 2016 results, the last time that we really had a GOP primary. 2020, of course, Donald Trump, the incumbent president, won all but one of the delegate votes and 94% of the popular vote. In 2016, though, as you can see here, Donald Trump won 1,441 out of the 2,500 delegates. So he did win a majority, and if you look at Ted Cruz's numbers here, he did come in second. He did do very, very well in 2016, although that's very unlikely to occur again in 2024. And so did Marco Rubio, who came in third place. Definitely a lot better than how he could probably do in 2024. So moving on here, Mike Pence, of course, the former vice president to Donald Trump. And again, I mean, he did stay loyal to Donald Trump for a major amount of Trump's term, essentially up until the very end when Trump lost the election. Mike Pence stayed by his side for the entirety of the time. I think that if he and Donald Trump could mend their relationship somehow and Trump does not run in 2024, Mike Pence definitely has a very good chance at doing relatively well. he is a former vice president, which means that no matter what, he'll be a significant candidate in the field for 2024, and he will have support nonetheless because of the fact that he was vice president. So for Donald Trump, I mean, if Donald Trump runs, Mike Pence really has no chance. Mike Pence doesn't even compare to Trump in terms of his appeal to Republican voters, but in the absence of Donald Trump, Mike Pence definitely could be a pretty viable candidate for the GOP. Next, we have Larry Hogan. He is the Republican governor of Maryland, and for Larry Hogan, I mean, he is still a Republican, although, many Republicans don't think that. He is, at the end of the day, he is a Republican, he is still a Republican of a Democratic state, and really he does not have too much of a chance. Too many Republicans think he is too liberal, which is why he really is not going to be able to make any sort of headway in a 2024 race when candidates that, really have a chance are the ones that align themselves very, very well with Donald Trump, and Larry Hogan certainly does not do that. Chris Sununu as well, he really does not align with Trump too much either. I don't think he really has too much of a chance in 2024, although he is a very popular Republican governor of a Democratic state like New Hampshire, more or less Democratic, not, overly Democratic, not a solid Democratic state, but definitely more Democratic than Republican by a significant margin. But Chris Sununu, who will be running in 2022 for his fourth term and will not be running for the U.S. Senate as he announced just last week, Chris Sununu, I think, will not do too well in a 2024 primary because he really does not have the appeal to the Republican base like he does for the voters in his home state. Ben Carson, another 2016 candidate, I'm going to put him in the D tier. He was in Trump's cabinet following his victory in 2016, but I think that Ben Carson really just does not have the sort of excitement that a candidate needs. He really is probably one of the boringest people you could ever meet, just in terms of how he physically conducts himself. If you look at the 2016 candidates here, you'll see Ben Carson ran a relatively successful campaign. He did actually come in 5th place, which was pretty surprising. He did come in 5th place. He beat out Jeb Bush. He beat out Rand Paul, Mike Huckabee, Carly Fiorina, Chris Christie as well. So, but definitely Ben Carson stayed in the race for pretty long and made a name for himself. But 2024, he really is not a good candidate for the GOP. He really is just not, exciting at all. But, you see Donald Trump here at the very top, and then Ben Carson did actually come in 5th in 2016. But I'm going to have to put Ben Carson for 2024 in the D tier. Next, we have Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson. I think both of these candidates would make very interesting potential nominees for 2024. They both run, very, very popular television shows. I mean, Tucker Carlson tonight is the most watched cable television show of all time, I believe, but at least recently, Tucker Carlson and John Hannity, I mean, their views are very, very high, compared to any other show on cable TV and so on Fox News. So I think that both of these candidates, they would both do pretty well in 2024, although I don't think they will run. If they do run, they will definitely gather a significant amount of support behind them. Next, you have Chris Christie, who I think is probably the worst candidate that the GOP could ever nominate. He was popular after Hurricane Sandy, but afterwards he really just his popularity tanked in New Jersey. He would have definitely lost re-election in 2017 if he was able to run. But of course, Phil Murphy became the governor after Chris Christie was term limited. But for him, I mean, he is probably the worst candidate that the GOP could run. He couldn't even make it into Trump's cabinet, even though he did support Trump before the 2016 election. Chris Christie, though, he does want to challenge Donald Trump. He is no longer on Trump's side anymore. If you look at the 2016 potential nominees, as you can see here, publicly expressed interest for these candidates. I mean, of course, you do have President Trump. You have Matt Gaetz as well, who really is irrelevant at this point after his whole scandal. He has no chance in the future. Ted Cruz, I think is definitely a viable candidate for the GOP. But Chris Christie, especially in recent days, he has publicly expressed interest in running against Donald Trump. not running if Donald, he's not saying that he's going to run if Trump doesn't run, like many of these other potential candidates. He is saying that he will run against Donald Trump, even if Trump does run. So for Chris Christie, I think he's probably the worst candidate that the GOP could ever put up in 2024. So there's no way he's winning the nomination. Mike Pompeo, the former Secretary of State under Donald Trump, I'm going to put him in the D tier. He is relatively well known. He has been making campaign stops in Iowa, especially, which is, of course, the most important state relatively in the party primaries for presidential nominations. But Mike Pompeo, I think that he could be he could be a candidate that gets some attention, but I don't think that I could put him anywhere above the D tier. Charlie Baker, another Republican that is the governor of a more Democratic state, this time, or not a more Democratic state, literally the most Democratic state in the country. Massachusetts has a Republican governor in Charlie Baker, so he is too liberal again for most Republicans. He is also called a rhino, just like Larry Hogan, Chris Sununu. So Charlie Baker, I am going to put him in the F tier because he really does not have any sort of appeal on the national level to the Republican Party. Tim Scott here, along with Ron DeSantis, both from the state of Florida. I think that Tim Scott, he recently won the 2018 Senate election, which put him in the United States Senate. He defeated Bill Nelson, who was running for a fourth term and had been serving in the House since the 70s. So Tim Scott definitely, I think, would be a good candidate for 2024. I think he definitely could have the potential of being a big name. But right now, I'm going to have to put him in the D tier. I don't think that he has the national recognition needed to be able to, start too successful of a campaign. I think that he may be able to work himself up there, but for right now, I'm going to have to put Tim Scott in the D tier. However, Ron DeSantis, I think, is a very good candidate for 2024. He definitely does have the Republican appeal. He appeals to Trump voters, he appeals to more moderate voters, and he's in the state of Florida, which is a crucial battleground state. Also one with a lot of delegates, a little bit later on the primary calendar, but still, definitely, I think that Ron DeSantis is one of the best candidates. He is a candidate with the second highest chance of winning the nomination. At one point, he had the highest chance of winning the GOP nomination in 2024. So I am going to put Ron DeSantis in the S tier along with somebody else I'm going to classify later. But for the S tier here, I am going to put Ron DeSantis, because I definitely do think that Ron DeSantis is one of the top candidates for 2024 in terms of both winning the general election and in terms of winning the Republican nomination. Ben Sasse immediately in the F tier. He's a very traditional Republican, not exciting, and will not be able to get the support of the GOP, especially since he voted to convict Donald Trump in the Senate. He was one of the only few senators that voted to convict Trump and remove him from office. So after that, he is never going to win anything nationally in the Republican Party. He may even lose his seat in Nebraska in 2024. We also have here Marco Rubio. He came in third, of course, in the 2016 primary with 7% of the votes cast. I think that definitely Marco Rubio will be a major candidate if he does run, although he has yet to publicly express interest. But he could be a possible candidate. Yeah, he's not on the list. There are, many candidates that decline to be candidates like Tucker Carlson, Dan Crenshaw, Joni Ernst, but really, there's really no telling. Politicians change their minds all the time. Joe Biden did not say he was going to run before he announced his campaign in 2019. So definitely, I think that he could still be a possible nominee in 2024, and I would put him in the B tier. I think he definitely does have wide appeal. He's also younger. He is still relatively well with Donald Trump, supported him in 2016, and I think that Marco Rubio definitely will be a major candidate if he does decide to run. But if of course, many of these candidates are very unlikely to run if Donald Trump does. But if Trump does not run, I think that Marco Rubio could definitely be a major player in 2024. Donald Trump Jr., I'm going to put him in the C tier. I think that if Trump does not run, it's natural for many Republicans to turn to, the person with the same name as him. So I think that Donald Trump Jr. will be my top pick for Trump's children in terms of their chances of winning. I think that Ivanka Trump, I would put her in the D tier, as well as Eric Trump, who I will also put in the D tier. I think that Donald Trump Jr., if it were to be one of Trump's children, I think that Donald Trump Jr. would be the best choice in terms of winning both a general election and the GOP primary, because he is more well-known than these other two. We also have Nikki Haley, who used to be, the front runner for the GOP nomination. I'm going to put her in the B tier with Marco Rubio. I think that in a case where Trump does not run, I think that she definitely would appeal very well to moderate Republicans, and I think that if she were to get more support from the Trump wing of the party, I think that she definitely could be a very strong candidate in 2024. She for a very long time was the front runner, and somebody that was expected almost to win in 2024, do at least do very, very well and run. That's why she decided to resign from her post as ambassador to the United Nations in 2018, I believe, to focus on a potential 2024 run. Although I think her plans have definitely been sabotaged after Trump lost his re-election. But for Nikki Haley here, I am still going to put her in the B tier. I think that she could still be definitely a major player. I'm also going to put Ted Cruz in the B tier. I think he is definitely a candidate with a lot of potential for the GOP. He's definitely not liked nationally and not too liked within the GOP either, but he does definitely have enough support to win the nomination in terms of his popularity. I think that he's not too hated, to a point where he can't even win the nomination of his own party. He came in second in 2016. He ran a very tough campaign against Donald Trump. He did come up short and has been, he has been basically following Trump in whatever he does. He was one of the two senators, along with Josh Hawley, who led the effort to actually reverse the election results. So Josh Hawley, I'm going to put him in the C tier. I think he is pretty popular among Republicans, especially the Trump wing of the party. So I think that he could be a major candidate among the GOP in 2024. But on the national level, I think both of these candidates would do very, very poorly with independents and, of course, Democrats. Tom Cotton, I'm going to put him in the D tier. He's not too well known, but he's definitely someone that can get the support of the Trump wing of the party. Tim Scott, I'm going to put him in the C tier. He's from South Carolina, relatively popular, the only African-American Republican senator in the Senate. I think that, he could be a prospective running mate for, any number of these candidates. I think that he would be a very versatile one, with South Carolina being near Georgia, as well as North Carolina, two states that the Republican Party really needs to win in 2024 if they want to win the presidency. But I think that Tim Scott definitely would be a pretty viable candidate for the 2024 GOP nomination. Donald Trump, S tier, of course, the former president. He is obviously going to be the one to beat. If he does run, I think that he will win the nomination without a doubt. But there's a very large chance that he does not run in 2024. Because of a multiple range of factors, from his age, from his legal issues, or just the fact that he maybe just doesn't want to run again. So for Donald Trump, I'm going to put him in the S tier alongside Ron DeSantis. Kristi Noem, I'm going to put her in the C tier. She did gain quite a bit of attention during CPAC earlier this year after being a speaker at it, and she did get some support, but she's not too popular. She's a current governor of South Dakota, but I think that for Kristi Noem, she will be an all-right candidate. I would put her in the average tier. I think that she could go pretty far, but I don't think she is going to be, I don't think that she's going to be able to win the nomination, but alongside Tim Scott, I think that both of these two could be pretty viable choices for VP. Matt Gaetz, the F tier after his whole scandal, just a lot of stuff. He really does not have a chance at all. And Mitt Romney, although in 2012 he won the hearts of the Republican Party, with over 10 million votes, 52%. Defeating Rick Santorum for the 2012 nomination. A lot has changed since then, especially after 2016, and Mitt Romney, after voting to convict Trump both times, he is not going to win the 2024 nomination. So this is it. This is my updated 2024 GOP tier list for the potential 2024 candidates. Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis at the very top, Mike Pence, Marco Rubio, Nikki Haley, and Ted Cruz, followed by a whole range of C, D, and F tier candidates. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you like it down below if you enjoyed it. Comment down below who you think the 2024 nomination is, or who you think will win the 2024 nomination, who you would personally support. and who you think will actually, or who you think will do the best for the GOP on the national level. Subscribe to our channel if you have not, and I will see you guys in the next video.